Today on Professor Tom's Philosophy in 10, the infinite regress argument. Today we will drop in on our friends in Radicaland, the land of the radical or global skeptics. The enthusiastic residents of Radicaland deny that we can know anything whatsoever. If, when arriving on their shores, you ask where the nearest pub is, every single citizen of Radicaland is sure to reply that they don't know. If you then ask who might know, they will again reply with enthusiasm that they have no idea. If you ask where you might find a directory, they will beam at you and say that they are clueless and don't know what a directory is. Now, this is all good fun for a while, but sooner or later, you're going to get hungry, and you're really going to want to find that pub. After bouncing around the streets a bit and experiencing increasing frustration from the residents' apparent unwillingness to help you, and their tendency to take a joke a little too far, in your humble opinion, a kind stranger just might point you in the direction of the office of the Minister of Knowledge of Radicaland, where you might be told you will find the answers to all of your questions. I know this because I have sought lunch in Radicaland. The building that houses the Ministry of Knowledge is impressively blank. It has a plain facade. The windows are plain. The single door in front of the building is plain. The flag flying above the building is plain. Everything about it is so plain it's almost impossible to distinguish any features, including the door. The curious will eventually find their way inside, however, and meet a man who is, you guessed it, plain. His clothing is unremarkable, his bearing is unremarkable. He is, however, invariably smiling with enthusiasm, beaming at each visitor as they enter. Again, I know this from personal experience. So here let me now report my conversation with the minister. I gather that nearly everyone who has met him has had a nearly identical conversation. I remember him first asking me what brought me to the Ministry of Knowledge. Glancing around, I saw that it's really nothing more than an empty shell of a building, by the way. I am sure that you, like myself, are not surprised by this. I've been asking the kind residents of Radicaland where I can find a pub, I began, but they seem to have been universally seized by an odd humor. They seem excessively sanguine to the point of hysteria, and I remain without lunch, and now without patience. The minister, I never did learn his name, but it seemed unimportant at the time, then rubbed his hands together and again, with great enthusiasm, replied, but of course, here in Radicaland we know absolutely nothing. In fact, knowledge is impossible. And it's one of the great joys of my duties as Minister of Knowledge to explain this to visitors such as yourself. The minister then proceeded to offer the following argument in favor of radical global skepticism with an air that it somehow explained everything. I imagine, my dear visitor, that you believe you know many things. You may think you know that you are hungry. You may think that you know that food will quiet your stomach. You may think that you know that you are in Radicaland, that you have a name, that the sky is blue and so is the sea, and that 1 + 1 = 2. You may think that you know things about the gods. You may even think that you know with absolute certainty the most basic of what you call logical truths, such as that no thing can both be and not be at the same time, and that all things are identical with themselves. I can assure you, however, that you know no such things. You, in fact, know nothing. For, and consider this point closely, if I asked you why you think that you know all of those things, you would be quick to give me reasons justifying your beliefs. You have consulted your bodily state, for example, and the ache in your stomach tells you that you are hungry. I can assure you that you know no such thing. For what if I asked you why you think your empirical observations are themselves reliable? You would need to justify reliance on them. And then I could ask you why you think the justification justifies your reliance on your senses. And if you actually offered some reasons to justify your justification of your reliance on your senses, well, you know what I'm going to ask. It's a never-ending regress of attempted but failed justifications. Now, is the matter any different when it comes to mathematical or logical claims, like the claim that 1 + 1 = 2, or the claim that no thing can both be and not be at the same time? No, it's not any different. I can, in each case, ask what justifies your beliefs. And what justifies your belief in those justifications? And so on, indefinitely. Even when it comes to claims about the gods, you will always be mired in an infinite regress of attempted but failed justifications. So when you asked the kind residents of Radicaland if they knew where a pub was located, they, having been taught the deep truth about infinite regresses of justifications that is the cornerstone and foundation of our society, responded as all good people would and truthfully told you they don't know. Having listened to the minister's obviously well-practiced speech, I actually felt myself becoming a little blanker, but with some mental effort, I managed to blurt out an objection, just as the minister was turning to return to his plain, featureless desk. But wait, Minister, my deepest apologies, but I didn't catch your name, but please, wait a moment, and before you go, tell me this, please. Aren't you making a claim of knowledge when you say that we can't know anything? Aren't you also implicitly claiming that logic and reasoning themselves work, and that you can rely on them when you argue that we can't know anything? Your speech is full of contradictions. You claim one thing, but act as if the opposite were true. You are what my philosophical friends call a performative contradiction, my dear minister. Radical skepticism is inherently contradictory, and I am surprised, now that I think about it, to find anyone living here, much less to find such a flourishing community. The minister turned on hearing this, still beaming, and replied, "Ah, yes, I can see that you will enjoy your visit here so much that I predict you will settle down here permanently." What? I actually stuttered in consternation at this ridiculous claim. "Yes," he replied, "for your objection is well taken. Here in Radicaland, we don't even know if we don't know anything. We don't even know if we don't know if we don't know anything. It's my duty to greet visitors like yourself and present you with our foundational argument, the basis and sole content of the Constitution of Radicaland, the infinite regress of justifications argument. It's an odd thing, however. Every visitor who hears the argument inevitably responds as you have, claiming that in making the argument, I contradict myself. Many accuse me using the exact same terminology that you have. They accuse me of being in a performative contradiction, and I can only reply that they have discovered the deepest truth of Radicaland, that all arguments are useless. All claims are ultimately unknowable, including the argument and claims I just made. It's pointless to speak about anything. So, we can leave all of these questions aside now. There's no point in further discussion, of course. Can I entice you with a hearty lunch at our finest pub? On the ministry, of course." The minister was at least partly correct. After one of the finest meals I have ever had during my philosophical travels, I did indeed decide to stay in Radicaland for quite some time. How long? I don't know. It might have been years, or only a day.